Hello, my name is Troy Ruhe,
I'm Tyler Hoskins.
and you're listening to our Sick Ass Podcast. Kia ora, and welcome to another episode of the Sick Ass Podcast. We have another in-guest special here, someone who's been through quite a bit and someone who has worked in multiple different places, and from that, you know, as I love to talk about, perspective from all of the different experiences that we do go through. So hopefully we can get into some of those experiences, but today's guest is Zoe Cotter. Thank you for coming on.
Cool, thank you, Troy.
Nice. So, getting into everything that we have to talk about today, as I said in our intro, I'm very big on experiences because I do believe that experiences shape a lot of who we become as people and how it is that we deal with different situations. So, if you want to just give us a little bit of an upbringing story about yourself, because you've been all over the Motu. So, where did you grow up mostly? Where were you born? Where do you affiliate to? All those sorts of things.
Okay, kia ora koutou, everyone. So, like Troy said, my name's Zoe Cotter. My whānau comes from the Hawke's Bay region, so Wairoa, if anyone knows, and also the Gisborne area as well. That's where my father is from. I was actually born in Napier before my parents moved to the South Island. They were chasing the fisheries work. So that brought me down to the South Island with my two older brothers.
Right.
So we were brought up in Nelson. Went to school there, went to primary school, did a bit of high school. I actually left school when I was 16. I was still living in Nelson, but I just didn't think school was really for me. I was starting to be a rebel, get mixed with like drugs, alcohol. I actually got a job as well, so I was more focused on, making some money. So my first job was working at McDonald's.
Oh.
Yeah.
As a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, how old were you?
So I was 15.
Yeah.
So that was like the lowest that they could hire employees. So when I first worked there, I had to like work in the restaurant, like wiping the tables and like sweeping the floors and stuff, because you had to be 16 to work behind the counter.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was quite funny because the person who was interviewing me, she was like, you've got the best smile. So that's why she hired me, because she just thought I was just so bright as a small person. And I was like, well, that still holds true to like today.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the most questionable things people like talk about. And I was just like, oh, thanks. Like, so I was quite pleased about that.
Yeah.
How
long did you work there for?
For about 3 years.
Right. So, I mean, you said that schooling was kind of not your thing, and you were working at McDonald's from 15. And then did you just go like full-time work once you were 16 and allowed?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So I started working in the McCafe area after a certain amount of time. So I was making coffees and I really enjoyed that. Like I was closing down at the end of a shift, the McCafe area. But that also meant that I mixed with the night crew a lot.
Sure.
So that's where like I started like drinking after work and started taking drugs, because that was kind of like the culture at the time.
Right.
Or, a bunch of young people finish work.
Experimental a little bit,
Exactly. What else do you do after a hard shift at work?
Sure. But then like so obviously there's positives to come out of working any job though that you do have.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who go into, people shit on that industry all the time. They're like, oh, you worked at McDonald's, and it's like, bro, you've never had a job. But what were, I guess, some of the things that you see as skills that you actually took from that? And because obviously it formed quite a bit of your earlier life.
Oh yeah. So like meeting and communicating with people, like that is the biggest skill and probably the most valuable skill that I learned there, was how to actually talk to someone. Interacting with new people every day and just working as a team, I think. And I've always like worked in hospitality right up until like my mid-20s or even retail. So like I think the mixture of my smile, my personality and all the communication thing just like all kind of formulated from there. But just working in that industry was awesome. Like getting up and going somewhere every day. Having a purpose for your day.
Did you find it difficult after that point to like get back into tertiary education? So we'll like talk about the shift that you had to want to get back into tertiary education. But like, I remember when I got a job as a teenager and I first like had that little taste of money.
Yeah.
And I found going to like thinking about school and stuff, because school wasn't giving me that return right away, but I was seeing my bank account grow by just going to this job. Like, it was a pretty average job, but it was more money in this job than I was if I was to carry on with school. How did you crank that cycle? Like, how do you get out of that?
So after I thought I wanted to change, and one of my brothers lived in Christchurch. So I moved from Nelson down to Christchurch. But while I was working, I just got another hospo job down there, so I was working in a cafe. But while I was working there, I started going to Hagley Community College.
Right.
Because for me, like I said, I left school with only fifth form, so I was 15, 16. But I still had, like, my mind was still working. Like, I still wanted to learn something. Sure. Like, and I still had a big interest in science. So I went to Hagley, which is kind of like a relaxed high school community college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did like sciences, and I did human body sciences. And I thought, you know, it was a bit strange for me because I wasn't like a bit of an adult. A bit of an adult. Like, I was 18 and all these people were like 15, 16 in my class. So it felt a bit like awkward at first, but I still worked and I was still able to go to class. And so I wouldn't really interact with anyone of that age, but it was about like making sure that I felt all my needs were met, like, because I still wanted to learn shit. So that ticked that box at the time.
Right. And in terms of the learnings that you kind of went through for all of that stuff, like when you're dealing with younger people, I think when you're all there for the same purpose, it kind of nullifies any of the age differences or anything, but you would have noticed like some immaturity for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like noticeable because maybe I was immature as well.
Yeah, fair.
So it kind of was more like I was there to do that job, like was to go and get some papers done, really.
Yeah. And then what spurred you into thinking about going into your first kind of career choice?
Yeah, so the Christchurch earthquake came about. So that obviously life-changing for everyone at that time. But for me, I was actually still working in a cafe the day of the actual earthquake. So that was in the city centre on Colombo Street. So I actually saw a lot.
Yeah.
And it kind of formulated why I went to go pursue what I did. Yeah. Which I'll talk about soon.
Sure.
So the earthquake came and I was at work. So I left. The initial earthquake came with the multiple, aftershocks. So we all left our building that we were working in. We did like a head count, kind of like one of the people that I worked with there. They had children, so they went off to go sort that out. But there were no vehicles really available. Yeah. So she just walked all the way back to Riccarton from the city centre to go sort that out. And I had to walk north because that's where I lived. And so I walked through the city centre while it was all crumbling around us, basically. Yeah. I had my friend, which was great because we lived in the same area. So we were able to navigate through the craziness, and everyone was freaking out, panicking, which was fine and all like valid. But I got home and I was just covered in dust, and I was crying,
Yeah.
so upset. And then I was basically without work.
Yeah, sure.
For about 8 weeks. Yeah. And it was pretty dire in Christchurch. Right. I didn't really want to be there anymore. Yeah. I mean, for the first couple of days we had no running water. But there was a broken pipe on one of the streets that we lived in. So we went there and collected water. Right. And then took it back home so we could boil it and have a bath and stuff. Sure. But it was really great because we got to know our neighbours and we shared food and just stories because we still had power, which was great. Right. But yeah, it was just the water issue. Yeah. Yeah. So after 8 weeks of living in Christchurch post-earthquake, I was like, okay, I'm done. There's no work for me here. There's no reason other than my brothers who also lived there, but there was no real reason to stay there for me. So I actually moved back to Gisborne. That's where my father's from, and he was living there at the time.
Right.
And I moved in with him.
Yeah.
And I was probably 19, 20 at the time.
Okay.
Which I was like, I haven't lived with my father since I was 15, 16.
Sure.
So it was
a
cycle.
Yeah.
But it was actually really fantastic. Like me as coming in as a more of an adult and having a good relationship, like forming a relationship with my father was actually one of the best things I could have done.
Absolutely. So I take it your mother and father aren't together?
No.
And they haven't been for a while?
Yeah, probably when at least 5 or 6 years prior to me moving.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. So this time you going back was at least a 5 or 6 year gap between you and your father being together?
Yeah.
Right.
We communicated, we called each other, but actually living with my dad was actually really cool because my dad was scary when I was kind of growing up. He was either at work or when he was at home, he was either sleeping or belting us because we haven't cleaned the house before he'd gotten home from work. Which were all kind of valid at the time as well.
Yeah, alright, okay.
Like when you're kind of sitting at home playing PlayStation all day while your dad works for like 14 hours and then he comes home and it's kind of like full of teenagers. Yeah.
And that kind of becomes the memory though, eh? Like, because you're a 15-year-old, say, the last time you see him, and then, like, going back as a 20-year-old, even though, like, there is that time and there's that difference, and, like, you've changed, he's probably changed as well, but you, like, the last thing that you have in your head were, like, those stories.
Yeah.
So, like, when you did go back, what was did you kind of feel like you could bring your guard down faster?
Oh, yeah. Like, me and my dad, I think, because I'm a girl and his only daughter, we'd always had a really close relationship.
Sure.
I was actually really close more close with my father than with my mother. So it felt even better, like getting to know my dad as an adult. I felt like I could understand him better.
That's cool.
And like the reasons why he was a little bit angry was the fact that we lived in the South Island, really.
Sure.
So Dad was separated for so long from his own family, and that, you know, even for him, he had some like trauma he had to get over. Yeah. So for him, he felt like settled. His spirit was settled.
Sure.
And that was like, oh, okay, this is a new chapter for us. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Which is, I think it's quite a cool thing that you bring that up, and it's a cool thing that you get that exposure at like 19, 20, and to see that someone, like, people can change. Yeah. And people have a bigger reason for why these other things happen. Yeah. But if you just look at them from like externally, you can always judge someone as being like a really bad person, and all of that stuff happens. So, I mean, I think about it with you now, because you kind of have been all over the place and you've experienced some things. Yeah. All over the place. So how is it that you then get yourself back on track to feel like, you know, because, I mean, if you put yourself down on paper, which, like, if you were to look at Zoe Cotter's life on paper from, like, you don't finish school, about 15, you start getting drugs, alcohol, like meddling with the wrong people. Yeah. You then are in one of New Zealand's worst natural disasters. Yeah. Like, walking through the middle of it. Yeah. You're then uprooted again and go elsewhere. Like, how, like, where do you come out? How does this then turn into where you are now?
Well, honestly, I think it was living with my dad in Gisborne. Like, I think, because I started studying, I went to tertiary education there, so they've got a polytech there. Yeah. And I started studying nursing. Right. And so because, like I said, I did leave school early, I didn't feel the confidence. Like, absolutely. I had the confidence to return to such a challenging course. Sure. So I did like a little foundation year. Mm-hmm. So I was able to, during my papers down in Christchurch, they all contributed to my entry, because it's quite a competitive entry, nursing. Yeah. And I think just that need, like, intellectually, I've always had a curious mind, and that was a strength that I always like think about when I think about myself. Yeah. Like, being curious about not just things but people. Yeah. And I think that kind of like married into who I was becoming. So that was pivotal, was returning, like having the confidence to return to tertiary education at like 20. That felt like a big thing.
Yeah.
But also was the fact that my dad comes from Gisborne, and we'd lived in the South Island for so long. I didn't know who I'd affiliated to, like in terms of my iwi. I didn't know like my father's family. So for me, getting to know them, I got to know my grandfather that I never met until I was 20, and he like shone like a big light on my father.
Yeah.
And it kind of like allowed me to understand our family a little bit more, because he's like the knowledge keeper. My father is like one of 15. Yeah. And he's the youngest. So he was also the runt. Yeah. He was also the one that was given away. And so all of that anger kind of had manifested to the man that I thought was bringing me up as a kid. Yeah. But also a soft person. I could see the soft person because of my grandfather. Right. He was a really like stoic but also really kind person. So meeting those people and just getting to know who my family was. And I'm not talking like family who you take in, like your friends that you form, you name them family because of the connection you have with them. They were my blood relatives. Yeah. And that was just like so powerful, especially coming from somewhere where you didn't think you belonged, like in the South Island. Little did I know that I actually whakapapa to the South Island. But for me, I always thought I was a little bit of a thorn. Yeah, I feel you. A little bit of an oddball. But going there and being in the community, I finished my training then, and I was also like doing all my placements out in the community. So I was getting a network of people who were doing cool things. Sure. And in Gisborne, the population is about 50% Māori. Coming from the South Island where everyone's non-Māori, that was really powerful. It was like gaining that sense of identity for me. So I started like volunteering. I started volunteering at the Cancer Society. I was like one of the youngest committee members on the Relay for Life committee. Sure. And I ended up getting a volunteer award for that. So that's that awesome. Was like, it was all coming together for me in that area. Yeah. And I'd gotten to the new graduate nurse program at Gisborne Hospital. So I started working there, and that was really eye-opening, but also a little bit sad. Right. So not only did Gisborne have like half of the population being Māori, they were also the most deprived areas of New Zealand. Absolutely. Might cry. No. Yeah, that's okay. So we were like, what I was seeing as a nurse were all long-term conditions as a result of poverty, basically. Yeah. There is money in Gisborne, don't get me wrong, but the people that were presenting were mostly Māori, and they were presenting at early ages. And when I say early, I'm saying 50. Like, that's the age of my parents, but with like life-limiting chronic diseases. Yeah. And so I always felt a bit sad that I was seeing this, like people just suffering from a preventable condition. Absolutely. Or something there's something that can be done to stop these conditions developing. But it was like they were like ignored, or just having to make do with whatever resources was there. So that really upset me inside. Like I still went to work, and I love my job, and I love seeing that I could make a difference in people's lives. And it was interesting. Like my brain was ticking. Like I love like trauma cases. Like that's where I'm most like fucking powerful. This is like woo. Like I love that shit. And so it kind of married my intellectual need and my like spirit and everything and my personality, like it all married
Absolutely.
that together,
Yeah.
and I felt really, really fulfilled.
Yeah.
But just this like sadness that I kept seeing Māori patients just suffering from preventable, or you could change the disease course by doing some more interventions. I mean, you know about physical activity. That was the stuff, the preventable stuff that that could be in place before they even see me at the hospital.
Yeah.
So that kind of led me on to thinking, well, I also had a story. I also had an experience in the hospital where I was just like, I was seeing like junior doctors. Well, I was communicating. I was trying to say that this is what this patient needs. Can you help me? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Can you help me do this? Because this person's suffering. And half the time they would come in and have a look at the person and then just freak out and maybe walk away and not really respond the way that I was expecting it to, because I'd spent my whole shift with that person. And it was more of the fact that these people were the same age as me but didn't have the skills, like the personal skills to work with people at such a state. And they couldn't communicate that to me to get their needs met. And I was just like, man, I can do your job. Like, I can do it. And so that's when I was like, I want to be a doctor. And I want to be a doctor in Gisborne. So I sat with that for a while. So I ended up staying in Gisborne for an extra year, working and just absorbing all the knowledge I could, what knowledge I can from working in a hospital. And it was great. I loved it. But I knew I wanted something else. So I was sitting on a night shift and looking at like the entry into medicine down here in Otago. And I put in the application. It was like 3:00 in the morning. And this was for first year house eye. And so I'd already done it, but I didn't tell anyone. I actually didn't tell anyone until I actually got the notification back that I was allowed to sit house eye first year. And I actually went in as an adult because I didn't finish that kind of thing. So I didn't have entrance into university. So
it's like 24? After 24? When is it that they you can kind of just go?
I don't know.
But as an adult?
Yeah, I think I was like 24 or something.
Yeah, because I think it might be 24 when you can get what's it called? Study link, like an allowance without, because you're not dependent anymore or something like that. And I think you also don't need UE after that point. You just get entrance, maybe. Anyway.
I don't know.
Anyway, you were a practicing nurse, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so...
You qualified.
But I was like, this was... Yeah, like I said, I didn't tell anyone because I didn't... It was that confidence thing again.
Yeah.
It's like the little barrier to why you want to... That stops you from doing things that you really want to do. But once I got the go-ahead, I was like, oh my God, this could actually be a reality for me.
Yeah, sure.
I think for me, my heart was in the right place. I wanted to do it for a good reason. A, to work with people, to work with my people. B, because I enjoy it. And I feel like, C, I wanted to see a change. I wanted to be a change maker. But I didn't know how to do that. I had gained enough skills in my community work and as a nurse just to, have a good idea of what was going on. But I didn't know what it meant to be at university.
Yeah, true.
So I actually drove. Once I got the clear and I told my family, they were quite understanding. They didn't really understand why I needed to go to university. I had started a career, and I was quite happy. But I knew it wasn't, I wanted more.
Yeah.
And I guess it wasn't always done.
Yeah.
they
what
weren't
they had
seeing.
known was like one way of doing things.
Yeah.
And what you were doing is so like far away from what they know is normal.
Yeah, they were like, why are you going to the South Island? Back down to the South Island, you came back.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be someone that I couldn't see. Like, I didn't see any Māori doctors around.
Right.
So it was hard for them to know what I wanted to do. Like, I couldn't be like, I wanted to be like Lance O'Sullivan, who's quite a known, like, character as a doctor now.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't a visualization that was apparent at that time.
Sure.
Like, if I said that to, like, my grandfather, he'll be like, oh, I get it.
Right.
Go.
Yeah.
But I didn't have those role models around me. So they were just like, okay, well, you know, be safe. Remember who you are.
Yeah.
Don't be crazy. And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got the go ahead. And, it was hard to say that I wanted to do medicine because I know how challenging and how competitive it is to get in. So I didn't tell them.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't until I just didn't tell them. I just left. And that was okay. And I think I was ready as well. Like, I felt like what Gisborne had given me, like, it had given me all that I needed.
Yeah.
And I was really, really, like, I loved that time. Like, I really, really did. But it was time to do something else.
Yep.
And so I drove all the way from Gisborne to Dunedin. And I actually really loved the road trip as well.
Yeah.
Love a roadie.
There's plenty of time to think. There's plenty of time to give you perspective on, like, because you can get so caught up in how small everything is, and you just think that that's your only world, and then when you like drive the length of the country, you're like, damn, there's so much going on in this world. And I just had one more question. So before you get into that, do you reckon, so you went back, and then from there you got so much perspective about like who you are, where it is that you come from, and then, because we always talk about the future can only really be shaped by the past, and you actually got to understand your whakapapa a little bit more, and I think, well, I don't know, you might not be open to this, but like spiritually, I think it puts you in the right place. Yeah. And I think when you're placed in the right place and you actually understand where your spirit sits in that moment that you are, like your future becomes a little bit more clear because you understand why it is you are where you are. Do you feel like if you didn't go back to Gisborne, you would be sitting here right now?
I feel like I would not. Yeah. I would be probably still a drunk in Christchurch, to be fair. Like, I was living my day so repetitively. I just can't imagine my life if I didn't go up there.
Awesome.
Because, just the family that I didn't know I had, like that type of support, like, it does wonders. Yeah. Like, I only have a handful of family down here, and I see them every now and again, but I know, like, a phone call away to 5 or 6 members, like, if I'm down and out and I'm forgetting what I'm meant to be doing, like, they really brought my goal into light. And I love what I do. Yeah. So,
I mean, you could be passionate about something and you could absolutely love something, but you know, on the days, I mean, Dunedin's cold. Sometimes we have to get up early. Like, do you find that helps you get out of bed when you have to?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think being in a routine as well helps me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, well, I love being in nature and I love talking to my family, so that they'll shake it out of me. Like, if I'm down and out, they will just yell at me until it's gone. I'm just like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. But so my routine gets me out of bed, I think. Yeah. If I was to tell someone my normal day, like they would be like, how do you fit all the things that you do into my day? I mean, I get up close to 5:30 in the morning. Yeah. But that's only because I've got to go do my fitness thing. But sometimes I don't get to bed until like 11:30 at night. Like, right. I think the responsibilities I have also like help me get out of bed. Yeah, sure.
You know, all those responsibilities that you do have though, how is it that you balance them so that they're something that excite you to do something rather than feeling like it's a burden?
Oh, because I enjoy them. Like,
okay, right.
so I'm a treasurer of the Dunedin Aspiring Surgeons Association. Like, so I've got an interest in surgery. But I also, when I first came down to the South Island, and I was saying that I did house eye. Well, I got into house eye, did house eye, but it was challenging. Like, sorry, this will come around in circles. I didn't have basic chemistry or math in my pocket, like math, physics in my back pocket, like a lot of the people who have just come out of school do. So I actually failed those papers.
Yeah.
Both physics and chemistry.
In your first year down here? Right. That's the first semester as well, eh?
Yeah.
How do you bounce back from that?
Yeah, you just do.
Okay.
You just remember that why.
Yeah.
That you know how I was telling you about the family member who just yells at you?
Yeah.
She yelled at me.
Yeah.
She goes, "What are you up to?"
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yep.
Right.
But it may have been multiple factors at the time, like, oh, I'm in a new place, I'm in a house that wasn't a home yet for me, meeting too many people too fast, like all those things that happen to a lot of people who come to uni, those affected me.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that it's house eye, like, it is a stressful time for people, and that's people around me as well.
Yeah.
They contribute to your own stress. But I didn't have a successful first semester here, and that was fine. I had a big cry, let it all out, but regrouped. Like I said, got back into my routine, thought there's light on the other side, let's see what I can do in this second semester. So finished, I ended up changing to a Bachelor of Science and taking some other 100 level papers just to negate the fact that I did not pass some other papers. So that was another full-on semester. But I felt like they were more in line with stuff that I liked and I knew.
Yeah.
So I did Māori studies, I did some like biology stuff, and I finished my Bachelor of Science with a major in anatomy and a minor in Māori. And I loved that too. Like, I really enjoyed learning how to study.
Yeah.
I enjoyed being social because house I didn't leave room for that. I enjoyed, because I already have a degree and I have a profession, I went and found a job. So I was able to work part-time or casually as a nurse and still bring in some good money.
Yeah.
And not be dirt poor like every other student. So that was quite helpful. And I think just navigating Dunedin was like...
Well, it's huge. I mean, even though you've done so much moving, I feel like there was only one place. It's like a reconnection back to where you needed to be, and then you like uprooted again, and it's almost like you were never given that time for everything to kind of reconnect again, and then you were given that time again. So I feel like, you probably have one of the richest experiences of being a person. I mean, besides some of the people who are like a little bit older, but like for your age and for everyone, like compared to everyone who's going to be in your classes, I feel like you're going to be one of those people where you should almost be relatable to most people that you come across.
Yeah, and that's really great. Like being in the South Island where there is a diverse population, but not so diverse as other places. I feel like nothing really affects me anymore. Like, because I've been challenged so much in my life, I just think, what's the solution? Yeah. Sometimes people find it annoying that I'm always like, oh, what's the solution to the problem? Yeah. Like, people want me, it feels like sometimes people want me to react. Yeah. But just that shit don't faze me anymore.
Absolutely.
And like I say, I think it's a strength as well. Like, you don't have to react to everything.
At the same time, I think a lot of people just want a pity party as well. Like they want to get pat on the back, and we're so good, I think, in this day and age, as social media, everything like that, we can highlight problems like galore. Like, this is a problem, this is a problem, but you are where I think we need to be, which is highlighting solutions or trying to find solutions. Yeah. So, I mean, it is a strength, absolutely.
But it's taken so much time to develop that. Yeah. But it's great. If something doesn't work, try something else. Yeah. And
I mean, where you are now, are you just like feeling more chill?
Oh, yeah. Like I say, nothing really phases me.
Yeah.
But I do get stressed about things when they start to pile up.
Yeah.
But I figure it out what I do is I go out in nature. I go think about it differently. I try something different.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of reflecting as well.
Yeah.
But that's what I do when I'm like out. When I say like I'll go for like an hour to 2 hour walk or something like that. Just like clear my head. Sometimes it's just with my music and try figure it out.
What are most of the reflections that you do have? Like when things are really pent up in you and maybe it's just like you've got a lot of work on or something, what are the types of things that you reflect mostly on?
I think just acknowledging, like, if I am quite overwhelmed by something, acknowledging that I'm overwhelmed, but also thinking it's going to be okay. Like, the next day is going to come anyway. So what's a different way of calming yourself down or thinking of it differently because of the fact that it is going to come the day's going to end and come again.
Yeah.
But if it's like a real big problem, I might talk to a friend about it.
Sure.
Instead.
Sure.
Just to get their perspective, or sometimes they highlight a different perspective for me. But I guess another reflection would be that it's actually sometimes things happen and it's often not a reflection of you. Like I always think it's a reflection of whatever someone else is going through.
Yeah.
So acknowledging that as well. It's not always your fault. In terms of if I think about like friendships or relationships, often it's a two-way thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as long as I'm at peace with whatever decisions come, like, or whatever direction I'm going in, e.g. moving back to the South Island to pursue something different, then everything will work out.
Yeah, yeah. I think having that, well, it's nice because you've obviously had the time to like wade things out and go through some stuff to actually be like, no, I've been through worse. Like this is probably going to be fine. And there's a lot of people who are much younger than you in your classes, and this is all they've known. Yeah. And they think like, oh my gosh, I've got so much on tomorrow. How am I going to get through this? And like, what's stress to them? But like relative to their life experiences, it is quite huge. And I think now that you're on this side, kind of like a little bit further down, and you've been through a lot, you can actually like let people know it's fine. Yeah. Like you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay.
Yeah. And I think like with the nature of my job and the nature of the job I'm gonna be in, like I use that as like I talk about using yourself as a therapeutic agent.
Sure.
And so if someone is having a bit of trouble, I might tell them a little story about myself. Like I don't tell all these stories to people. Like they're close to me, and they're only given to my friends or like my family members, like the experiences I have, because some of them are tough but some of them are really cool. Yeah. That's another thing. Like when you've gone through a lot, you tend to have this, I don't know, zest for life where you want to go experience everything and anything. And that's so me. Like, because of what I've been through, I'm like, okay, what else can I go through? Yeah. So, for example, I was saving for a car. And so I'd like been saving for, doing my part-time jobs, studying, whatever. And I was like, yes, looking at cars. And what I did instead was I bought a ticket to England.
Do you? And that's how you do it.
a month traveling alone.
Yeah.
To England. I went to France. I went to Paris. I went to Prague, and then I went back to England because one of my friends had a conference there, so I went to go support her. But that's what I mean. You just take life by the balls and you run with it. Yeah. Because I was like, I love experiencing different cultures. So I've been to like Thailand, Bali. I go to Australia because my brothers now live over there. They've moved from Christchurch for other opportunities. Yeah. And but I went through a bit of shit when I was over in England too. Like I lost my wallet. I missed the Euro train to Paris. Like, I got drunk in Prague, and like I couldn't find my accommodation. Like, but those were all opportunities. I think just to, those little more challenges, just to have. I think I have like quite. People might think I'm quiet, but I'm actually just sitting there ticking along, thinking, actively thinking, but maybe not portraying that to them. But that's how I've kind of gotten some opportunities, was just by having like a little ounce of courage at the time, and somehow ending up in this some crazy situation where I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah, I think you change your like what's scary for you. Like, it used to be scared of being embarrassed of something, but now the fear is missing out on something because you didn't put your hand up for it. It feels like that's almost you. Like, you're just like, oh well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but if it does, hell yeah. So I kind of just do that all the time now. Like, I get, because I've just like, nothing, if it happens, it happens, but if it doesn't, I don't want to miss out. So it kind of like FOMO. Do you get mad FOMO?
Not really.
Right. But FOMO, not of other people doing stuff, but if you were to miss it, you'd be FOMO of that opportunity for yourself. Yeah. Right. For myself rather than,
like you say, relative to someone else's experience. Like, I still had like that deep inkling that I wanted to be a doctor. So I applied, and I was working also, it was like 3:00 also when I was notified that I got into med, and I just felt like I was so fucking excited. Like, I was excited that all my dreams were about to come true. What I'd envisioned for myself back then was about to like start progressing to something bigger than me.
Absolutely.
And it got me so excited, because I meet a lot of people like me, like in terms of people at the same age, people with life experience, people who have been through shit, and also like connecting with other Māori who also had like similar ideas and outlooks, but back from where they're from. I was like, this is like, my future's going to be cool. It's going to be bright. And it's more of a, not just my future, it's going to bring all my whānau's future. It's going to bring everyone up, not just me. So that's, if we say that would be my reason I get out of bed as well. It's just because I'm excited about what I can do.
I'm just thinking about the future generation too of medical practitioners, and I'm thinking about a lot of tension that we have here, I guess in universities, but just like because of the types of people who are going to go through. So if you were to hear every single person who was like you, who was like being given these opportunities to be in medicine, based on their own merit as well, but there are a lot of people who see these people as, you're stealing my spaces and like all that sort of stuff, right? So we're talking admission schemes here. Now, if all of them could talk about their aspirations and their want to go back to their communities to make that place a better, like just better overall, with all of these different things, why do I really don't understand where people get this whole perspective that like you're just given this opportunity to be in med, like we just hand it to you because you are Māori and you're stealing spots. What would you say to someone who brings that up? What's the reason that we feel there is a need to even have this?
So I kind of talked about it when I was living in Gisborne. Like, I was seeing, well, firstly, we accept Māori because they have traits like me that can't be taught in med school, in the traditional system. Like, they don't have the interpersonal skills that possibly Māori may innately have, just through their holistic outlook. So that's probably them as an individual person. But the reason we need it on a population level is because Māori health disparities are poor in comparison to non-Māori. And we can think about that in Pacifica as well. Like, we are suffering disproportionately more in chronic conditions and diseases that are preventable. So what the university is, or these admission schemes are trying to do, is they're trying to elevate those statistics. I mean, we can look up any statistics related to health, and you'll see that population groups suffering most from it are Māori and Pacific. So they're trying to meet this need by increasing the Māori health professionals and Pacific to mirror that of what's happening in society.
Sure. And for the people who come out though, like, I don't know, how is it that we can show those people who are truly in it though? Like, say someone like you sat down in an interview with me right now, and I was the one who was going to say whether you go through or not. Like, there's no question. I know for a fact by like the type of person that you are, that you genuinely have a want to help people. But then, like, what about the people who just do it but then don't? Like, they don't have that aspiration. How do you show that?
Well, you have to prove that you're Māori to get into the
That's also true. Yep.
category, but even often it's a journey for them.
Yeah.
Like, so I went through a journey with my identity, and who knows, they might have, they may have graduated, they might have a key person who's made them reflect and change the way that they see it. I think when they get exposure to what the system is actually like, and how powerful they can be just in the position that they are. I mean, we talk about, I had someone talk to me about, I said to this person, I feel like I'm not doing anything because I like to be involved on a political level in systems, but because of the way that med school is, it's a hierarchical thing. Like, I'm a third year med student now, so that's still low in the whole hierarchy of things. So there's little responsibility or power that you can have there. But what she said to me was that just by being who you are, and being that person that can be seen, is already pissing people off.
Absolutely.
So that encourages me, just being seen, and keep being who I am. Yeah. Saying kia ora. Yeah. Like being in spaces that I'm probably not meant to be. Yeah. But pushing buttons in those areas as well. Yeah. And I think that's a responsibility for me going through the Māori subcategory. Like, is just being present, because people don't like that. Yeah. And also, like, I'm on a mentoring program, so I'm the tuakana for other Māori students. And just supporting them, just saying you're enough just being in here. Yeah. Because you're going to learn the medicine, but they can't teach you who you are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think it's quite important that you, like, we never put our hands up to be leaders, and we never put our hands up to be role models, but then when you get into those spaces, like you said, the responsibility then falls on you because you are one of very few. Yeah. And then once you're in that space, like, it's being able to put your hand up and just be so good at what you do, like, just excel, and then just show, like, there's no question that I should be here. Yeah. Like, I belong here. I'm better than most of y'all. Yeah. Like, without being cocky, but like the thing is, you usually excel, and a lot of the reason is because we have a huge reason to be there. But beyond money, beyond financial compensation, it's like, I am here for these people. And if you don't figure it out, like, as you graduate, you've got a long career ahead of you. Yeah. And, like, all of that might come to you at some point. Yeah. And I hope that people who aren't at the same level that I am at with myself, like, I hope they get that. Yeah. I hope they get the trauma. No. I hope something happens for them that makes them think about something. Yeah. So that they develop. Yeah, that little bait and switch that makes them feel like, it's time to learn. It's time. Yeah, I think everyone gets thrown in the deep end at some point in that river. So just in terms of time, Goodness gracious, where did that go? Anyway, just in terms of time, what we like to do is get a tangible takeaway. So there's been plenty of takeaways for people to be able to take from this, and I think huge stuff is just like being you, which is so cool. Like I don't hear it enough, but that's the reason we have this podcast, is to put stories out so that people can be like, damn, other people think like me or don't quite think like me, but I want to be like that. So what is something that you do close to every day, or I mean, you talked about routines earlier.
Yeah.
Close to every day, or maybe weekly, something that you feel though is pivotal for your week to make sure you feel like you've optimized your time.
Get outside, like honestly, an hour of your day, go for a walk, go to the gym, like just get some fresh air. There's actually some beautiful spaces around Dunedin that I like to just run around, but get the body moving. Not only is it good for your health, but it's good for your mind and it's good for your spirit. So
that's your one thing every day?
Yeah.
You're getting out and about,
yeah,
regardless of what it is in
even
terms of activity. Just get out and about, enjoy things, and have some time to yourself.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think, last pill.
No, you're good.
And just be grateful for what you've got. I mean, I kind of, when we were talking before, I was like, I'm so grateful that I've got the freedom. I've got my freedom and my health. Like, just being grateful about the small things that you have. Like, you may not have the latest iPhone or whatever, but you've got a phone.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I always think about it with this podcast. Like, sometimes I get really upset, or not upset, wrong word. I'm just like, damn it, I have to go do this podcast. And I was like, no, I'm given the opportunity to do this podcast. Like, everything that so is there anything, sorry, just last thing, for you in terms of showing gratitude, do you do anything in particular, or do you just kind of, are you just aware of it?
I do, like, journal every day, like, in terms of, I like to write what I've been up to.
Yeah. So
it might be, I walked to university in the sun.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so freaking cold down here.
Yeah.
Like, just having that 20-minute walk in the sun, like, I was really grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I think just writing down, like, your highlights of your day, really just when you're feeling low, compiles. It's like, oh, yeah, sweet. Like, you can look back at that stuff and be like, oh, I was having a great day that day because of this and this. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the cool thing that I liked about that is like being able to walk in the sun, or just being able to walk in general. Like, it's something so basic, but like we get that given that opportunity all the time, but we can easily overlook that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, no, Zoe, thank you so much for this almost hour, even though I told you it was going to be like 40 minutes. Sorry that we've gone over, but the stories that you've told, I was sitting here shook. We both, I was trying to show some empathy, but at the same time, I was just like, I was so shook. And I think there was some areas of just high energy, and I could really feel, we do have the video. We have the video. There were times where I could see you getting choked up. So I appreciate the fact that you were able to share what you shared with us. And I hope people do listen to this and see that you are someone who's so much more relatable than any other doctor that they may have. So this could be the future, fam. If we keep doing our thing and we keep pushing forward. So that has been another episode of the Sick As Podcast. Zoe Cotter, thank you so much for your time.